June 28th, we talked about, oh Lord, is it Sunday already? Planning together and planning ahead. And that's why we started in June, thinking about Advent. I wanted to sort of prime the pump and invite you to what I call a visionary retreat. So we talked a little bit about that on August 8th. We talked about what's up, meaningful worship for our lives, and about how our worship can be relevant and right on to what people are yearning for, thinking about, and how the liturgical year really is a wonderful container for that. And then today we're talking about as easy as 1, 2, 3 steps for creating meaningful worship. So this is going to be down and dirty, very, very practical. What I do first, what I do second, what I do third. And I hope that you're going to get some tips. And also, for those of you who are just studying with me for the first time, I've been doing this worship teaching and consulting for over 20 years. And over the years, I've worked with hundreds of churches and worship teams and honed some processes for design and for structuring the process that can really help you move it along, have fun doing it, have it be something that's spiritually fulfilling so that the design process is as fulfilling as the worship itself. Because, Sunday comes around every week, right? So this has been just great information for anybody, but it's also been get ready webinars for my planning retreat, which is coming up very soon, September 9 through 12 in beautiful Lake Junaluska, North Carolina. Gorgeous place around the lake. The picture you see there is of the lake and of the view that we will have there. The amazing news is that actually we are sold out. We have we have about 130 people in the room. We have people from over 20 states coming, which I'm very excited about. That happens at most of my retreats, maybe all of my retreats now, I should say, for the last few years. And what I love about that is that we get to cross-pollinate. You're not just learning from me, but you're learning from each other. And the energy in the room is amazing. So I'm sorry for those of you who didn't make it this year before we sold out. But here is the amazing news. I told you I have 2 pieces of really amazing, great news today. And that is, one, that we have made it so that the retreat center is helping us to live stream the event. So we are going to invite people to join us by live stream or watch the recordings if that's convenient, more convenient for you. So you can get in on the retreat, the content of the retreat, if not sort of the cross-pollinating and the feel of being in the room, but you can get in on the content of the retreat. And I'm going to be, talking to you as well as the people in the room. And we'll have a Facebook chat room where Jenna will be moderating that, and I will be weighing in if you have questions, that kind of thing. So really excited about this opportunity to make this happen for more people. So you can go to worshipdesignstudio.com/planning retreat, same place where you registered for the live event. Now we have a link to take you to register for the live stream event. It has the schedule, it has the price, it has everything there. So go and check that out. We'd love to have you join us virtually, if not in person. So, friends, let's get to the content today, because this is going to prepare us for this, what I call the visionary retreat, which I talked about on June 28th, and we talked about Sunday coming around every week. When we are doing last minute planning or week to week last minute planning, or even just a couple of weeks ahead of time, there is this pressure, there is this stress, there is these deadlines. And because Sunday comes around every week and we're doing this all year long, the problem is that even if it's a low level of stress, and maybe it's high level for you, but even if it's a low level of stress, that is a continual stressor all year long. And that is one of the number one things that burns pastors out, is this continual stress of planning for Sunday morning, because it's going to roll around and people are going to show up. So what I really have as a passion and as my vocation is to help you begin to look further ahead so that you can begin to look at what you're doing way before the pressure is on. What that does is it builds anticipation for the season rather than dread that, oh my gosh, I've got to get my act together. And it has to be, it has to be meaningful. and I don't have time to look for something new. That can be, that can keep you up at night. So when you start far enough in advance, this visionary retreat that we're going to be on very soon together, you could create your own retreat if you're in with a live stream. You can create your own retreat. Go somewhere beautiful. Don't just do it in your house or your office. Go somewhere beautiful and create your own retreat, and I can come to where you are. But you set aside that time, and we start with Advent. So we start far enough out that we can really feel like we have a long view, and we can feel excited about that rather than feeling like, oh my gosh, the clock is ticking and I don't have my act together. So the second thing is that when the pressure is off, we get time to discern the spiritual journey that is needed for this year, for this community, rather than whatever we see first, whatever we think of first, and we just go with that because we don't have time to think about anything else. We can discern what is the way to tell this story, because the Advent Christmas story, just as an example, comes around every year. How do we tell this in a fresh way that gets our attention yet again, that touches us deeply? So that second webinar, we really went deeply into this. And so I hope that if you didn't get to watch that you will, especially those who are coming to the retreat, whether that's live or live stream. When you watch that webinar, you're going to be put in the mood to discern, to be in spiritual reflection as the visionary, as the shepherd, whether you're the pastor or you're the core worship team that's discerning this together. What is on our hearts and where do we need to go with this? What is the good news we need to hear proclaimed? What's the challenge maybe we need to hear? So that's a wonderful step to also getting closer to understanding what's going to be relevant and life-giving for the congregation this year. And then we need a process. We need a process to get us from point A to point Z, right? So it's not enough just to have a great idea. It's not enough just to say, oh, this is going to be awesome. Well, don't just keep saying that until a week before and then you go, oh, it's only going to be awesome if we have our act together, if we have the details going. So I want you to have a strong creative process in order to facilitate what I call teamwork that works, because we've all experienced, maybe you're lucky enough not to have experienced it, but I certainly have, when there are too many cooks in the kitchen, when we don't have a strong process, when we don't have a good idea of what our roles are, and we maybe have some wishy-washy starting points and we're not exactly sure what we're doing, that is a recipe for more stress. So when I say plan together and plan ahead, that plan together part of it can be as stressful as the last minute planning, right? If we don't have a good process, if we don't have a strong idea of where we're starting and where we're going. So in the first webinar, I touched on this, but I'm going to remind us again about this. What is a worship team? Now, I just led a retreat for alumni here at San Francisco Theological Seminary where I'm teaching this year. Over the last 3 days, we were together, and someone mentioned something about a worship team, and she went, yeah, right, that would be me, right? So many of you may be going, yeah, amen. So that would be me, she said, that I don't have a worship team. And I said, actually, do you have somebody who plays piano for you? Because I'd heard her mention this before. She goes, yeah, okay, you have that person, all right. Then you have somebody who probably turns on the lights and makes sure that there's communion elements when it's Communion Sunday, and you sort of shepherd of the space. Yeah, I have that. Oh, look, okay, you have somebody on your team. All right. You probably have somebody who is sitting at the soundboard. Oh, yeah, of course, I have that. Okay, you probably have people who are in the choir. Oh, yeah, okay. So all of a sudden she realized she does have a worship team. So here's the point. The point is I want us to blow up the stereotype of what a worship team is and say you already have a worship team, even if you feel like you're planning alone. Everyone who helps to make worship happen is part of the team. So I want you to right away feel like you're not alone. Now, there are different ways that people can be involved. The first way that I have here, those who work on worship all the time, so maybe you and your pianist and the person who's turning on the lights and passing the offering plates. This is at the small church level, right? That's your core team. You may add a couple of people just to help out with Advent. Long gone are the days when people can say, oh, I'll be on a worship team for a whole year. You get the same volunteers all the time because they're the people who have the time, but your most creative people don't get to be on the team because they're creative, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff in their life. So maybe they would be able to just commit to one season, right? Maybe that's Advent, Christmas, maybe that's Lent, maybe that's Easter season, maybe that's during ordinary time in the summer when you have teachers whose schedule is a little bit lighter. So that's what I call a series team. These are people who work on worship only some of the time, just for a season or a series. And even adding one or two people gives fresh perspective, fresh energy, fresh life. So think about who you might draw in just for a series to help you do some things. What things you say? Well, we'll get to that. And then there are some whose gifts and passions are just matched with a task. This is what I call an extended team. You might have somebody in the choir who loves the hymnal, and you know that you're going to do a series on that has an anchor image. We're going to talk about anchor images today, a main metaphor of light, and you give somebody keywords like light and star and candle, and you say, find me, just make me a list from the hymnal of all the songs that mention this, especially Advent Christmas songs, but don't keep it to that. They're not making any decisions, they're just making you a list. So when you get ready to say, okay, I need an opening hymn for this Sunday, you have already a curated list of possibilities, and that person has helped you in a way that was fun for them, that was less stressful because they weren't making any decisions, they're just making a list. Right? Same thing with photographs, if you use media, all kinds of ways you can draw people in just for a specific task on something that they already love to do in their life. Okay, so 3 different ways to draw people in based on their availability, right? Okay, so worship team can be a much different thing than what we have thought about in the past. And it can be much more freeing, and you can say, yeah, I do have help, and I can get help. Because it doesn't require just signing up for a committee. All right, now what will help them? Once you get people helping you with a series, you hear me talk about series, and that is the first thing that's really going to help them. And that is not to plan one-hit wonders all the time, where you're sort of reinventing the wheel. You're coming up with a visual idea that's just going to be there for one Sunday. And then the next Sunday, you have to have a different visual idea. That is a recipe for burnout, burning out yourself and the people who are helping you. So when you create series, there are so many advantages. Let me just go through those quickly. I like to create series, but because it creates a communal spiritual journey from beginning to end. And so what that does is it helps us to see ourselves over the course of a few weeks, dig deeper and deeper into a topic, into a way of looking at things that helps us focus, helps us have a lens. And when we repeat that theme, and we're going to go into it in different ways every Sunday, but it's related to an overarching theme. And when we get to come back to that overarching theme Sunday after Sunday, what happens is that it starts to permeate our minds, our hearts, our spirits outside of Sunday morning. And we get to steep in that. And we get to sort of reflect on that. So I call them worship series, not sermon series, because it's way more than the sermon that's going to connect with that overarching series. And we're going to see how that happens in just a moment. It also helps us remember and reinforce messages over time. So like a book has chapters, a song has verses. It helps us to remember and reinforce those things as we return to that overarching message again and again. And what we know is that repetition really helps us to remember something. And so that's one-hit wonder service might have been fabulous, wonderful, but there's only a certain percentage of us that will remember that because we actually need that reinforced in some way to keep recalling our memory back to that. So that's another advantage. Now, what we also know is that brain science has told us that not just repetition, but something that's an aha will also help us remember. And so when you do a worship series and you look at Advent and you say, how can I look at Advent this year that's going to be different than other years so that we can wake up to that story again? That is a really wonderful thing to do that also helps to sear it in our memory. And then we keep repeating that over 4 weeks, 5 weeks, actually 5 weeks as we include the Sunday after Christmas in that as well. So we have both the aha and the oh yeah, the creativity and the repetition. And this is a recipe for helping us remember, take in the message, and begin to live that message in our lives outside of worship. The other thing that I want to say about it, a series being a container for the familiar and the new, is that, and we're going to see this as we look at some of the elements of my upcoming Advent series. Ooh, little teaser there. Yeah, that's what's coming up. We get to have some things that are brand new just for the series, but they're going to get repeated. So by the end of the series, they're going to feel familiar, right? But we're also going to have some things that look very familiar to our order of worship so that we feel like we have anchors, right? So that we get both the aha and the oh yeah. This is, when I talk about the politics of change, this is a really important thing to remember, that the blessing of doing series is that it helps to create a culture of flexibility in your congregation. If we've been doing the same thing in the same order for the last 50 years, and we change something, of course that feels like, oh my God, my world has just rocked. Not only because we haven't changed things in a long time, but because what we understand to be worship is that it doesn't change. And if you change this thing, I think we're going to change it forever, right? For the next 50 years. But if we get in this habit of doing series, and something little changes each series, not the whole kit and caboodle, but just something, and it makes sense because it has to do with the theme, then I am going to become more and more comfortable with little things changing here and there from series to series. So it is a great way to create a culture of flexibility. All right. So it also helps the worship arts team not get burned out doing sensory-rich worship. I already alluded to this as I talked about, visually, if we're going to do something really interesting visually, and it's really important that we do, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. If we're just doing a one-hit wonder and we put in all that effort for that thing, that visual thing, and not to mention a little bit of budget perhaps, or at least time and effort in finding and borrowing the materials to do that, if we just do that for one Sunday, that's just, and then I do something, equally as wonderful visually for the next Sunday. That's a recipe for burnout. And so what we want to do is we want to create within series those things I call threads that repeat. And so a song is going to repeat, maybe a theme song, maybe a prayer song. We're going to have some visuals that stay the same. So you can do something really beautiful with the sanctuary and then leave it up for 5 weeks. Hello. Oh, yes, before we have to change that again. So this is a wonderful way of helping us be creative and have a higher level on a more consistent basis of quality and beauty and something extraordinary without burning ourselves out. Okay, so it can also act as an on-ramp for visitors. So what you see here is a little logo for our new Advent Christmas series that is almost ready. We're putting the finishing touches on it. It's going to be unveiled at the retreat. We will be making that available at that time. But it's called Calm and Bright, 200 Years of Silent Night. And it's based on the fact that the song Silent Night made its debut 200 years ago this year. And so we have created a series that follows 4 verses for the 4 Sundays in Advent of Silent Night. And it's going to be extraordinary. I've just had a ball working on it. We are excited about what churches will do with it. And so I'm going to use this as an example to help us think about how to have a structure for creating, because I'm going to take you through what I call an anatomy of a design process. All right. If you want to, know more or be on the list to be notified as soon as this series comes out, you can go to worshipdesignstudio.com/silent night and sign up to be notified as soon as we get it out there in the world, so you can get started on it. But you're going to get a really exciting look at what it is here in this webinar, because as I talk about this series, I'm going to take you through kind of the anatomy of my process of putting together a series. And that's what we need to make it easy as 1, 2, 3. And that is a structured process that helps us know what to do first, what to do second, how to build on the ideas we come up with so that the team can know where we are in the process and what we need to do. All right, are you with me? Just put in the chat box. Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, here we go. Let me know you're there. I love webinars, but I also love to know that people are, quote, in the room. So yes, all right, saying that you're with me. I appreciate that so much. Woohoo, great, let's go. Awesome. Okay, so anatomy of a process. The first thing that I do when I get an idea, so the idea, actually Mark Burrows, my expert on children's ministry in the Worship Design Studio, sent me an email and said, hey, let's talk about the fact that Silent Night is 200 years old this year. And I went, oh my God, that's so fabulous. So the first thing that I will do is I will write what I call a synopsis for the series. And it's a 3 or 4 sentence description of kind of the essence of what it is that I want to accomplish in this series. So the synopsis for the Calm and Bright, this year is the 200th anniversary of the debut of Silent Night, Holy Night. This hymn has become the best-loved worship moment of many Christians, even those who only come to church once a year. Something mystical occurs as we light our candles and sing the hope of all is calm, all is bright. Peace and light for the world. Can you put yourself there right now, right? I mean, I can just see it, right? You're lighting candles and you're singing it. Okay, so this worship series will celebrate the carol's message over the entire season of Advent and highlight its call for our lives that can guide us all year long. So this is one of the things that I love to do with a series, is to have a starting point of a song or a hymn. Because often something as familiar as Silent Night, we sing it, and we sing it at that quintessential time, Christmas Eve, we're lighting our candles. We sing the words which might be familiar to us, but we might not have as much time to dig deep and really understand what those words are meaning. So in this series, we get to spend a whole week on each verse and unearth what that hymn has in it as its theology, as its call to us, as its prayer for the world. And as I worked with this hymn, I fell in love with it all over again. So much richness in there. And those of you who will be using this and preaching on it, you will fall in love with it again as well. And you have right in each verse wonderful fodder. And of course, I have done my exegesis and drawn in scripture passages that can help you also proclaim that together. And so it's just going to be rich, rich, rich. The first Sunday really contains one of the most dramatic and beautiful stories related to this hymn, and that is the Christmas truce in World War I, where on the front lines of World War I, the British and German soldiers called a truce for Christmas Day. And from their trenches, in the peace and calm of that Christmas truce, they could hear each other singing Silent Night, each in their own language. They came out of their trenches, they played soccer that day, they exchanged small gifts, and that story alone, I get verklempt just thinking about it. And we have found pictures that we're going to give you as fodder that you can use to give people a visual for that. That story alone is going to draw us to reconsider how we are with each other. Where do we need peace? Where do we need truce? Where do we need to come together? Even though we may have opposing views, opposing sides, we may have problems with each other, we may have things that are difficult, where do we need to come together and find our common humanity? So that is the essence of this series. And so the synopsis just helps us and helps the team. So I'm the visionary, right? And so it helps my team when I write these sentences. It helps my team get on board with the vision of where I want to go with this. So that's the first thing I do, step one. Okay? And I create what I call an inspiration page. In the Worship Design Studio, we have a design app, and those of you who are members of the Worship Design Studio, some of you use the app, and at the retreat, a lot of people will be using the app to create your inspiration pages for your own series if you're not using mine. But it creates for you a just sort of a one-pager that has the title of the series, what I call a scripture fragment that's kind of the essence of the scripture, and then the synopsis. And this one pager, if you come back from your retreat with at least this one pager for the entire year, and you can lay out like 7 different inspiration pages and see the flow of your whole year. Oh my gosh, that's going to be amazing. And your folks who are helping you out, whether that's one music person or a whole team of people, they're just going to go, oh my goodness, look what kind of year we're going to have. This is amazing. And you can see your spiritual journey and the flow of that journey in front of you. So just that first step gives you an amazing sense of ease and calm, talking about calm and bright, and excitement for it. Okay, so the photos on there, the reason why I invite people to pull photos as a first step as well is because I believe deeply in this thing called anchor image. An anchor image is a metaphor, all right? It's a symbol. Symbols are those tangible things that can help point toward sort of larger concepts, right? It connects us to the story of life and to the story of faith. So that it may be something that shows up both in scripture, but also it's part of our common experience, our common humanity, the common stuff of our lives. And it's broad enough to offer many possible variations. So what I invite people to do is to find a strong image, a color palette and a strong image as part of that first step. So let me tell you a little bit about the anchor image for Calm and Bright, 200 Years of Silent Night. So Silent Night really brings us immediately to that night when Christ was born, right? So sometimes in Advent, we try to not tell stories about that night until we get to Christmas Eve. But we are going to steep in that story of that night for 4 Sundays. And I think that's not a bad thing at all. I think that every once in a while on a year, we might need to take more time to dig deeper and deeper into what it means that we have an incarnational faith, that Jesus was born as a baby, into this world. The Holy came as a baby into this world. And so the Silent Night song to me brings those images of light, right? Calm and bright light, and that image of the star. The star was that thing that pierced the darkness in a particular way that night. And it was something that guided people to the place where Jesus was. So the star is going to be our anchor image. So the color palette actually with star could be golds, it could be blues and purples, which is a very much, the sort of traditional liturgical colors, could be silver, but definitely something that gives us some shine, right? We want shine. And so you can see here some images that I have found on Pinterest. Pinterest is my friend, right? Of stars. And you can find these stars, these lighted stars. I can imagine that churches will figure out how to have some of these stars hanging from their ceiling, not just the chancel, but maybe all around. What I hope is that you will figure out how to engineer the feeling when the congregation is in the pews or the chairs, that they are in the midst of a starry night, right? Whether or not you have lots of sunlight coming in, just the presence of stars can help you get that feel that you are in the midst of the starry night, not just looking at it, but you're surrounded by it. So how can you do that? Found these star candle holders. You might have to make them for yourself, but it looks like these are made of little mirror tiles, which what a great way to get some more shine. So maybe your Advent wreath has some stars as part of that. So the anchor image is that star, and so that's going to come out again and again in our series. So we have started a Calm and Bright board on the Worship Design Studio Pinterest page. So you could go there right now. Those of you who are Pinterest junkies, we have started to pull different ideas, and that will just get more and more in the next week as we finalize our And I actually, all during, once I create these series, I just keep going to the Pinterest board. I keep seeing more and more things. So we just keep adding, and you can do your own as well. But lots of things to do with stars that can work very well for this series. So here's another thing that we have decided to do for this series. Um, One of my worship design studio associates, Shelley Walters, did this last year with sort of make your own Advent wreath for home, especially with children. And they're made out of the battery operated tea lights so that kids can turn the lights on, right? And they get to have this sort of Advent experience at home during the week as well. We're going to use the same idea, but we have found little cutouts of stars. And so instead of circles underneath those tea lights, it'll be stars. And so we'll do a how-to video of how you put those together, how you can have children send those home with families. And we'll have a whole little liturgy you can do with families there that will include some of the little prayer responses from worship. So here's the thing. When you do a series, and as you begin to deal with anchor images and all of these things, what you start to do is you start to see how all of these things can cross-pollinate in many different ways, from small groups to children's activities, to mission work, to worship, to Christian education. You can see how all of these things cross-pollinate. And when you work far enough in advance, you can actually have all of those departments, if you will. Some departments are one person, right, trying to make all those things happen. Some churches are big enough to have those different departments. But you can cross-pollinate and have that theme infuse everything that you do, which just deepens the message more and more and gets more and more people involved and participating at whatever level that they're engaged with the church. All right, so step 2 is I create frames. Now, frames are simply another word for services. I call them frames because I don't call them Sundays or weeks, because within a series, let's use Advent Christmas. I'm going to have 4 Sundays of Advent. I'm going to have Christmas Eve. Maybe I'm going to have 2 or 3 different Christmas Eve services of different types. And then I'm going to have the Sunday after Christmas, right? So we're going to have 6 frames at the minimum for this series. So frames are kind of like if you go into a museum exhibit that's curated. Let's think of Picasso's Blue Period. They're all going to be sort of variations on a theme, but they're all sort of separate. So these frames are variation on the overarching theme. They're containers for the overarching theme. It's the movement from one worship experience to the next. So what's the organizing factor? Like what are we putting this around? Well, for Calm and Bright, it is the 4 verses of the song that was the organizing movement from one to the next. And so I went with the traditional order of those 4 verses, which you're going to see kind of put the hope, love, peace, and joy Advent a little bit out of order, but I felt like it was more important to keep the verses in order because that's the way we'll sing it on Christmas Eve. So I decided that's sort of the order. Now, some of you who use the lectionary may be thinking, oh, this is not for me. She's talking about worship series. I'm a lectionary preacher. So even though Colin Bright is non-lectionary, I have many, many lectionary series in the worship design studio. And basically what that means is that my starting point was the scriptures in the lectionary. Then I found a thread throughout that could be the overarching theme, right? The lectionary, you could go in so many different directions with the Revised Common Lectionary. So many different directions. And that's a good thing because it comes up every 3 years. So if you're really wed to the lectionary, you're going to have to find some other way of looking at the season. All right. So I just want to interject that right now to remind you that this is not anti-lectionary, this whole idea of themes and that kind of thing. All right. So the next thing that I do is I make frame or service titles. That's my next part of the process. So I have come up with the idea. I've written a synopsis. I've come up with an anchor image, and I've gathered some photos so that my team in that inspiration page can get a sense of that anchor image. Now I'm going to come up with my titles for each Sunday. So Sally has just asked a great question. I'm curious about Christmas Eve, since that would be the 5th worship service in the series, and there are only 4 verses of Silent Night. Great question. So Christmas Eve, is the whole song. That's the first time we get to sing the whole song. So Christmas Eve is actually a culmination of the 4 Sundays. It draws it all together. And we're going to use, the scripture we're going to use is, of course, the narration of the Christmas story, the whole kit and caboodle, right? And then actually there is a 6th frame. Actually, let me just go to that, right? The 6th frame, the Sunday after Christmas, is the very last 2 words of the first verse. Jesus Christ is born, is born. And that's going to be the jumping off point. Sunday after Christmas is very close to New Year's Eve. And so we sort of look to the future and we say, how is Christ born in our community, in our lives going forward? So let's take a look at my frame titles. So I pulled, since I'm following the verses, I pulled for the frame titles just little bits from the verse. So sleep in peace. Could be sleep in heavenly peace, but sleep in peace, right? So obviously our big Advent word is peace, and our theme focus for that first one is peace. Hence that World War I Christmas truce story, all right, as sort of an anchor story. By the way, in these fully scripted series, I give you sermon fodder, so that will come with it is some sermon prompts, some things. I don't write the sermon for you. I mean, come on, people. It's got to come from your heart. But I will give you some ideas, some theological thoughts that you can at least prime the pump for you writing your sermon. Advent 2 is glory's stream from heaven afar, right? So glory's stream is talking about the angels and this streaming of the glory, the hallelujah from the angels. And so joy is our theme for the second one. Advent 3, redeeming grace, is one of the little phrases in the verse. And so love, right? Grace, redeeming grace, that we are bathed, like we're bathed in the light of the star. We are bathed in grace. We are loved unconditionally. What does that mean? How are we redeemed? Meaning, how are we made new? Because we know that we are loved in this way to our core, and that grace is what God leads with, right? God does not lead with judgment. God leads with grace. And certainly Jesus, in the way he welcomed people, all people, to him, and invited them into living their lives out of this unconditional love, which makes us better people, right? So it's not about just not becoming better people, but it's about being bathed in the light of that love and what that does to redeem, make new our lives so that we want to live our lives in a way that exudes that love to others. Advent 4, let us sing, is a little phrase in that verse. And so, singing for me, we don't sing unless we have hope. To sing is to have hope, right? To sing is to say, even songs of lament have hope, because it is the hope that expressing ourselves in the world, proclaiming peace, love, joy, hope, proclaiming that love in the world is actually the way that we change the world. And in that is hope. And so that is Advent 4. Christmas Eve, I called it Calm and Bright, the name of the series, because it is that culmination of all 4 verses. And then the Sunday after Christmas, as I said, is born. And that is that what is born in us into the future. How is God's love, the incarnation of Jesus and Jesus' presence with us as God with us, how is that born into the world in and through us again and again? So through all of these, the star is the guiding light. The star is what points toward peace. It just rains joy over us. It bathes us in love. It points toward hope. And so the anchor image and the frames are going to work together all through this. So that was my next step, right? Was to create titles for my series, which helps me to see the movement from one to the next and to see the trajectory from beginning to end of this series so that it makes theological sense, right? We build on each other until we have this fullness and this sending forth. I hope this is making sense. Let me know in the chat box if this is making sense, and I hope you're seeing that when you have a process of going from one thing to the next, it really can begin to make sense for you and for your team right away. Awesome. Terrific. Okay. All right, so every series has a synopsis for each frame or service. So this is something where the getting really gets good for your team. Now, you may not get to full-blown synopses in your visionary retreat because the main goal of the visionary retreat is not to get bogged down in one series, but to get an overview. So that's why I say the inspiration page is going to be the most concrete thing you do. Then you're going to do some titles. And what I'm going to want you to do in your visionary retreat is at least jot down some thoughts about each one of the services, right? Maybe just as brief as what I just did for those Sundays in Calm and Bright. At some point in the process, though, when you start to really get ready for the series, as the timeline brings you closer to the beginning of that series, visionaries, you are going to spend a little bit more time and you're going to write a synopsis for every Sunday. Now, here's the thing about using one of our series, and that is that we jumpstart that for you. I've already written these synopses. All you have to do is edit them if you want to edit them, right? So one of the things I want to suggest that if you are a Worship Design Studio member, if you feel like one of our series, I have 11 Advent Christmas series now. So if you feel like one of those 11 would be right for your congregation this year, I am going to suggest as a jump start to your year that you use one of our series because it's going to take some of this process out so you can start later in the process and really get going with your team. If you've never done one of my fully scripted series, I want to encourage you to do one of those. This will be 3 now that I have. The other series I have all the synopses, we have ideas for every Sunday, but we haven't put it together in a script for you. You put it together in your own script, which is great, and that gets you further in the process. But if you use one of our scripted ones, you're even further into this process, and it can really jumpstart your team in terms of learning how to do sensory-rich worship. Okay, so that's what I do, and I'm going to show you the overarching timeline at the very end of this webinar. But about 10 weeks before the series actually begins, you're going to flesh out those synopses. All right, so the third thing that I do then is figure out threads. And threads are things that repeat from Sunday to Sunday within the series. It provides consistency within the series. There are things that repeat or remain the same or transform. So for instance, an obvious one for Advent is that the first Sunday you're going to have one Advent candle come in, maybe in a star candle holder. And in the second Sunday, you're going to have 2 come in. Exactly. It just transforms over time, but we're not reinventing the wheel. It's all in the same kind of container. You're going to have stars maybe all over the sanctuary. And as soon as the people who get up on the ladders to help you hang those, get them hung, they're like, I'm not getting up here until this thing is done, right? So that might stay the same, Or if it's easy to do it, you might add more and more every Sunday until Christmas Eve when you have a ton of stars. Maybe these are stars that are paper cutouts that Sunday school classes are making all through the season, and so you get more and more and more of them, right? Whew, there's an idea we haven't even talked about. Jenna, write that one down, because that could be very cool. Same way you make snowflakes, you can make cutout paper stars. So these things become familiar and attached to the overarching theme. And it gives I'm going to use a marketing term here, so don't get turned off by it, but you're going to know what I mean right away. And it gives it its sort of branding, right? It gives it a flavor. It gives it, we're in this series, right? Just like the same as you're going to have a logo for it and maybe in a series trailer, which I'm working on right now with a brand new composed for this series song. Anyway, it's going to be terrific. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. So decide on things that repeat. Why do we do this? Because the brain loves patterns. The brain loves patterns and loves to recognize patterns. And so when we have something new, like a new way of doing prayers of the people, which you're going to see in a moment, then if we repeat that throughout the series, the brain's going to love that, right? It only takes twice for things to start to feel familiar. That's how long. That's how quickly and how facile our brains are. And equally, our brains are wired in different ways. And some of you have heard me talk about this in my teaching, and I'm not going to go through this, but suffice it to say that we want to have threads in all the different worship arts because different people are going to be tuned in to different things. So some people are going to notice that our prayer responses in the verbal arts are going to be the same every Sunday, and that will delight that part of their brain. Some people won't notice that as much or won't care as much about that because they're more musically tuned in, and they're going to love it that we have a threshold moment that brings the same music in time and time again, and that's going to start to feel really good, that pattern. Visual people who love the visuals are going to notice all of the patterning that's happening with the anchor image in the space. Same thing with those who are tuned in and love the art that is the media. You're going to want to have, maybe you have a loop of a starry night that's going as people come in every Sunday, and that's going to be delightful to those people. And maybe the dramatic arts, the fact that you're bringing in mission kits, and I'll say this in a moment, and putting them under the manger every week, that's really going to tickle their brains. All right, so many different ways, and those repeated patterns will delight people in ways that make it meaningful and memorable, what I call good worship. Okay, so let's look at some of the threads in the Calm and Bright series. Now, we have a candle procession, right, for each week, and with the threshold song, meaning the threshold for me, and I've got another slide for this, so let me hang on to that. It's called Calm and Bright, and it contains a synopsis, a prayer, and the passing of the peace. So we're going to look at that in the script in just a moment. Children will come up every time, and Mark Burrows, again, is going to be writing scripts for that. Oh my gosh, he's so brilliant, and it's going to be so much fun. So that will be a thread because he uses this idea of having a thread. So you're not just thinking every Sunday, oh, what will we do with the kids again today? It's going to have some structure. And even though it will change slightly each week, those of you who've done my series know, like last year, feathers in Angels Among Us was our anchor image. And so the kids interacted with feathers every week, but in a different way. Scripture, we're going to have a musical underscoring of the anthem or the song, band song that comes in under the second half of the scripture. Prayers, we're going to use this beautiful song, Christ Be Our Light, as a thread song throughout. And for prayers of the people, we're going to have people lighting candles every week and blessing mission kits. So mission kits, if for small group activity this year, instead of a sort of sit down and book study kind of thing, what we're doing is we're suggesting for every week that you get together in small groups and make kits. So they're going to be, we have a long list of many different kinds of kits. Could be baby kits. It could be kits for people who have to work on Christmas Eve and Christmas. So maybe goodie packages for first responders, people who work at the hospital. We have a long list of things that you could compile and make during the 4 weeks. And each week, whatever it is you decide to do, that will be processed forward, and you'll have the manger present every week in this Advent series. And those will be gifts that you'll bring them all or just a representative kit, depending on how many you have, right? But we will have a time in the prayers of the people when you come and you light a candle and you lay your hand on a kit and just say a prayer to send your love and light with that to whomever it's going to. All right, so the sending forth, the theme song refrain is our new song written by Worship Design Studio member and longtime, I think I'm making her associate because she keeps writing songs that have to do with our series. And she sent me this while I was in Ireland. I got a text from her at 1 a.m. after she'd written this. I woke up, I listened to it, and it meant so much. And it's We Need a Silent Night. And it's a beautiful song. We will use that as an anthem. Chuck Bell is arranging that for choir. Anthem in the first Sunday. And then we will use that refrain from that song as the benediction song every week. And then that will come back in full as the full song on Christmas Eve. And it's going to be so incredible, friends. Let me tell you about this. And we're going to do this at the retreat. So you don't want to miss this. Whether you're already registered live or you come on live stream. We're going to actually be doing it and trying this out and singing it for the first time there together as a group. I'm so excited. But we're going to send you the soundtrack of this song, and we're going to have you video yourselves. Could be your whole church. It could be just your choir. We want you to hold candles, and the video just can be on your phone. Doesn't have to be a big deal. It's even better if it looks a little more raw, right? And we want you to sing the refrain of this song, and we're going to splice that together in video during this fall, and you are going to have that to play at your Christmas Eve service if you want to. So you can be singing that with churches all over virtually together in this video, and then it ends. The first time we'll sing all the way through the real Silent Night will be at the end of that song, and then your congregation will sing and, of course, light candles. And I am so over the moon about this, because when you hear this song, you are not going to believe it. I'm going to use a little bit of it in the series trailer that will come out very soon, so you get a taste of it, and then you'll get the soundtrack. Everybody's going to do this series. You'll get the soundtrack, and I want you to video yourself and send it to me, and we are going to have a ball putting that all together. Very exciting. All right, friends. So a threshold moment launches us into a time and space that are set apart. It sets the theme. This is something that I will invite you at the retreat and in your own retreat, your own visionary retreat, whether that's live with us, live stream with us, or on your own. I want to encourage you to think about, how do we start the service? And I don't mean welcome and announcements. I mean, after that, there's got to be a moment where we cross the threshold and we set the tone. It sets the theme, and therefore gives us a lens to look at the entire service through that lens. How many times have I been in a sermon series where we do all this stuff, and then we get to the sermon and the preacher says, we're doing a sermon series on blah, blah, blah. And I think, well, I would have liked to have known that at the beginning of the service, because it would have made that opening hymn make a whole lot more sense. It would have made that prayer make a whole lot more sense. So what we want to do is we want to set up the theme right away. It's kind of an introit and a call to worship enhanced, or on steroids, as I say. And so that is another thing that will really help you get a sense of what that is, and help your team get a sense of. And so that's the next thing I do, is I create that threshold moment. So here you have on the slide, this is a little teaser, a little taste of a threshold moment that's there for Calm and Bright. And you'll see how you'll see that after the announcements, the pastor says, I invite you to take a deep breath. Imagine that what is above you is a starlit night. You'll pause for a moment, and maybe some chimes or handbells will start to ring, right? Because the sound can help us imagine that we're in a starlit night, even if we don't have stars up there. And then the pastor says, and in this moment, all is calm, all is bright, right? And then a musical introduction comes in to this Calm and Bright song that Chuck and I have written. And what it does, the choir sings, it was the night when peace was born. And the congregation just echoes, silent night. And just as now the world was torn, holy night, right? Just sing those two things. We don't want you to sing the whole verse until Christmas Eve, but we're just going to echo it, right? And then we've got a bridge, and the pastor does the synopsis, and then we speak, we whisper it. We whisper that first verse. That is our focus for that Sunday. Sometimes when we take something we sing a lot and we speak it, we pay more attention to the words. So the congregation will do that, and then we will finish out with a repeat of that silent night, holy night, right? A prayer of opening, where if you have a tradition of a family bringing the candles forward, then they can do these two reader parts here, or you can just have two readers. The response of the people, fill us with your peace and light, make the world so calm and bright. And that's one of those little responses, rhyming responses, that we're going to have in the children's liturgy that they can do midweek as well. So imagine if you're a kid and you've done this midweek and you keep hearing this repeated in the Sunday morning service. Guess what? even the littlest will be able to start saying that with the congregation at that moment. It's going to be a magical series for multi-generations, and I'm very excited about that. So I'm just going to, prayers of the people, as I mentioned before, is going to have some candle lighting, some blessing of those mission kits. So we have liturgy for that. And then the benediction, you'll see that we have a spoken benediction that's the same every time. It's a thread. As the light goes forth, we say, "Go with God into this day. May the Spirit guide your way. Offer joy to all you greet." This is from the Joy Sunday, right? Just that word changes depending on the theme for the day. "Offer joy to all you greet. Like Christ see God in all you meet." Again, something rhyming that children can memorize. And then we sing that refrain. "We need a silent night in here. We need your presence to come near. Give us the hope we seek and the peace we need. We need a silent night in here." And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. So I hope you're excited. So here it is, easy as 1, 2, 3. At the retreat, whether it's live, whether you come on live stream with us. Remember, we've opened that up now because we're completely sold out, and the Retreat Center has made live streaming available to us. So you can register for that as well. There is a cost, of course, but it will give you access to the content and to the recordings. So if you can't be on live with us at the very moment, you'll get the recordings. Those of you who have registered live, guess what? You're going to get recordings now, which means you can take this back and sort of refresh your memory before each one of the seasons and sort of be back at the retreat, which I think is an awesome thing. And for those people who couldn't come to the retreat with you, you'll be able to help them get a sense of it. But at the retreat, I'm going to invite you to make an inspiration page. Series title, synopsis, anchor image. Frame titles, scriptures, and notes. So basically, make your frame titles. Doesn't matter if later on you have to tweak them, but at least you have something down. You're going to write a couple sentences about each service just to jog your memory when you get back to, you're going to be planning for what you think you'll do in Lent. And then at the beginning of the year, you're going to pull out your notes and you go, what the heck was I thinking? And you're going to have some notes from yourself, from your former self, that will remind you what the heck you were thinking, right? So that's what you're going to do. And you're going to brainstorm some thread ideas, just some things that you think could repeat, from anchor image ideas to maybe ways of doing prayers of the people or benediction, that kind of thing. And I'm going to be guiding you through the whole thing during the retreat. The last day of the retreat, Wednesday morning, we are going to look at, now that you have this much structure done, now what happens when, beginning of the year, you're planning for Lent? What do I do from then during the whole year to keep this amazing, concrete, structured process going? And I'm going to take you through all of that so that you know exactly what you're doing. And friends, that is what makes it easy as 1, 2, 3, is to have a good structure, to follow that structure, for everybody on the team to know what's expected and when expected, so that it's not wishy-washy, oh, we forgot to do this, and you're scrambling. I have created a process that can help you keep your ducks in a row, right? So you can get to the creative stuff. All right, so join us by live stream, folks, if you were not able to get in before we sold out. There's nothing like being in the room live, and I love that because I get to, mill about the room and talk to people who are there, and you get ideas from other churches and that kind of thing. But next to being there is at least getting, going on your own retreat and maybe getting some of the content from some encouragement. I'm the best cheerleader there is, and you're going to get a lot of cheerleading and a lot of inspiration, I hope, at the retreat. So, worshipdesignstudio.com/planning retreat. Go there. There'll be a button to send you on to find out more about the live stream option, and you can get signed up. And as soon as you sign up, remember, just like the people who are coming to the live retreat, we will send you something for fall. We're getting really close to fall, but if you are a one-hit wonder or a last-minute planner, this is going to help you. We give you a whole lot of ideas all the way through All Saints so that you can have that jump start, so that you can really focus on beginning to plan for Advent at the retreat. We did it. We barely did it. It's 1 minute past the hour, and so it's time for us to say goodbye. I am so excited. Thank you so much, Owen. I'm excited to see you at the retreat as well. And friends, thank you for being with me these 3 free webinars during the summer. If this was your first one and you want to see the first two, we're going to send you those links so that you can see all three of those and really get excited and get your act together to make this year, this liturgical year, an amazing time of turning dread and stress about worship planning into excitement and spiritual renewal for you as well as your congregation. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.